I was happening, y'all. It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we have multiple reports coming in, and this was before we just beat the Giants. But the Washington Commanders are aggressively trying to trade for a corner and a wide receiver. We're going to break down Lattimore's contract. If we were to trade for him, how advantageous that contract would actually be. It's even better than you think. Also, the Washington Commanders are apparently one of 3 teams in on all-pro corner Tre'davious White. We're going to talk about him along with another corner as well. And you already know this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for pulling up and supporting, especially the live stream. That was a really fun live stream during the Giants game. Appreciate y'all pulling up, watching that with me. And then the call-in show afterwards was amazing per usual. So shouts out to all of y'all that called in and gave your opinions and feelings on everything that was going on. I really appreciate y'all. Of course, regular scheduled programming, we'll be doing all of that again this upcoming Sunday against the Steelers, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Support the videos. I'm trying to do like 2-3 videos a day. Without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. And let's start with the wide receiver half of this video. Well, apparently there's a report going around that the Commanders have poked around the wide receiver market in search of another receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin, according to Jonathan Jones. Jonathan Jones wrote an article on CBS Sports titled 2024 NFL Trade Deadline. The latest rumblings from around the league is teams are more active than ever before. And he also had right under that the header, what I'm hearing ahead of Tuesday's deadline. Remember, the trade deadline is Tuesday, tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And he went on to break down a whole bunch of the rumors that's going on from a lot of different teams like the Detroit Lions, the Chargers, Cleveland Browns, Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carolina Panthers, everybody. He covers everybody that seems to be likely to either be sellers or buyers. We're in that buyer category potentially. He said specifically Washington has poked around the receiver market to potentially give Terry McLaurin some help as we make a playoff push. And I'm really excited. I love the way that sounds. You know, to give some Terry McLaurin some help is nice as well. But he's making it sound like, hey, we're gearing up for these playoffs. You know, maybe a couple of months ago, we weren't necessarily expecting to be buyers, but things have changed now that we are as good as we are right now. As great as our record is, now things have changed. We may pivot. Originally weren't buyers, but now we're at 7-2. It may be time to go ahead and start looking at being buyers. Even though we are ahead of schedule and everything like that, you better jump on this opportunity while you have it. And then we also already have confirmation from another report that we tried to sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling after the Bills released him just to make enough cap space for the Amari Cooper trade to even be legal. But they didn't necessarily want to release him, but they literally had no choice because in order to trade for Amari Cooper and for it to make sense cap space wise, that's when they had to cut MVS. But MVS ended up choosing the Saints over us, and then his agent snitched to the entire world like, hey, the Commanders tried to get him before he chose the Saints. You know, pay attention. The Commanders are snooping around. So anytime there's a leak as far as like what the Commanders want to do, it's typically coming from like the other side of it. Like the Tre'davious Smith report about how the Commanders were calling and trying to trade for him from the Cleveland Browns. That came from the Cleveland Browns side of reporters saying that these are the teams that are calling. It's rarely, if ever, a leak coming from our side of things. It's not a Commanders reporter. It's not a Commanders front office member or a coach or a player or anything like that. It's always from the people that we're talking to, which I really, really like. I mean, I'm happy as like a fan to hear that we are pretty active right now, but I also love how the Commanders are doing a great job of keeping everything under wraps, at least on their end. It's other people on the other side now holding up their side of the bargain. I guess we need to start signing people to NDAs with a lot of this stuff. But either way, with Deontay Johnson, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, and DeAndre Hopkins already traded away, there aren't too many options left. I mean, honestly, I would say T. Higgins probably makes the most sense out of all of the guys that are even possibly available for trade again, especially since Deontay Johnson, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, and even D-Hop got traded. Because the Commanders have already shown that they want a receiver of a certain caliber because they tried to hop on the Valdes-Scantling situation as soon as he got cut, and at the same time have avoided signing any of the wide receivers that are already available in free agency, like on other teams' practice squads, guys that are just sitting on the couch waiting to be called. But as soon as MVS gets cut, oh, now we hop on that one. So we're apparently definitely looking for a certain level of receiver talent that specifically, and which automatically cancels out most of the names that some people maybe think that we're linked to right now. We're definitely going for like one of the bigger dogs out there. And so T. Higgins wise, I mean, he may be a good option. You know, I don't necessarily agree with Pro Football Focus, but they're a decent reference. And right now, he's having the best grade of his entire career with an 85.3 overall grade, which right now would make him the 5th best receiver in the entire NFL. If you can acquire, according to Pro Football Focus, the 5th best receiver in the entire NFL, I feel like at the very least he's top 30. You know, to be completely honest, I'm not going to sit here and act like Pro Football Focus is spot on with the fact that he's top 5. I definitely disagree with that. He's a great wide receiver too. I don't necessarily think he's like an elite wide receiver 1 at all, but still, he would be a huge help to our team. And even just this year alone, I mean, he had an 82.8 grade versus the Cleveland Browns. He had an 81.4 grade against the Giants. I mean, he's been putting in work. His best grade so far this season was an 85.6 grade against the Baltimore Ravens. And mind you, I mean, I think Terry McLaurin is a better receiver. I think Terry McLaurin is a #1 receiver. I believe T. Higgins is an elite #2 receiver. But again, T. Higgins is 5th in Pro Football Focus grade. Terry McLaurin is 16th. And then you got to keep scrolling to find Noah Brown at 44th, Olamide Zaccheaus at 47th, and De'Ami Brown at 50. But how much is he potentially going for? We're not even talking about trade. I mean, at this point, I have absolutely no idea how much he's potentially going for trade-wise, but contract-wise, because that's the problem right now. The reason that he's even potentially even slightly available is because the Bengals are struggling to pay both him and Jamar Chase. So after you trade for T. Higgins, remember, this is the last year of his contract. Immediately after this season ends, you have to pay him long-term, or he'll just walk in free agency, as if like you just never traded for him, and then you would have given the Bengals all of those picks for nothing. So you'll probably already have like a contract extension in place as soon as you trade for him. You make sure he agrees to that contract extension in principle by his word, and then you make the trade, and then he goes ahead and like actually signs it legally. But right now, SpotTrack has his market value at $18.9 million per season, and I would pay that. I think that's a good number right there. That's less than what Terry McLaurin's getting. That's less than DJ Moore. That's less than Michael Pittman Jr. That's less than Chris Godwin. I would definitely take that deal right there. You got to remember, this guy is going to be 26 years old by the end of this season, the very end of the season. So technically, pretty much almost the entire 2025 season, he'll still be 26 years old. He turns 26 in January. So this is a guy that's still like going into his prime right now. He's a positive trajectory. I think if anything, he's only going to get better moving forward. So I'm really excited about that. And even just this year cap space wise, because right now he's a $21.8 million cap hit because he's playing on that ugly franchise tag that the Bengals put on him. And we can afford that. We could trade for him right now and still have cap space left over, because we are 6th in the NFL in 2024 cap space with nearly $7 million worth of cap space. But then 2025 wise, we're 2nd in cap space with $122.9 million in cap space. So we could easily pay him long term whatever he wants. And again, if SpotTrack is on point and this guy's only going for a little less than $19 million per year, it just completely, the only reason I wouldn't trade for him is if the Bengals are asking for too much in return as far as trade value, like a first or any like a second and something else or something like that. No thanks. But honestly, T. Higgins' main problem, because everything else sounds good, but his main problem is that he is slightly injury prone. Now, he's not as injury prone as like a Noah Brown, to be completely honest with you, but he did just miss this past weekend's game against the Raiders due to injury, and he also missed the first 2 weeks of the season due to an injury and made his season debut against us week 3. And then he also missed 5 games last year in the 2023 season and missed 2 games in 2021. I personally still feel like it's worth it, but I understand why some people are zero tolerance for that type of thing. I understand. Now, before we move on to the cornerback part of this video, the second half of this video, y'all already know I gotta let y'all know that this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino, and if you're looking for a new sportsbook, it should be BetUS for sure. First of all, they're the fastest payouts in the industry, and I know y'all want y'all money fast. I know I do. And right now, BetUS is offering you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits for up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. That's YOUTUBE150. And they have a fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process, so it's like, why not? Now let's take a look at some of the bets that we can get into directly through their website. Well, how about we start to look at these NFC East division winner odds right now? Crazy enough, the Eagles are still the favorites according to BetUS online betting odds. They're -140. The Commanders are +120 right now. And if you believe that the Commanders will go ahead and finish this out and we are the better team, we'll beat the Eagles at least once, maybe split it half or even sweep them, we end up winning the division because the Cowboys are sorry, we already swept the Giants. If you believe we can win this division, this is potentially some positive good money that you can make right here, because again, we have +120 odds. So say if you wanted to put $100 on it, you would win $120 by the end of the season after we won the division, and I don't think that's much of a risk right there. I think we honestly have a better chance. We have the better record right now. I feel like we have more of the momentum, and again, I feel like we're going to beat the Eagles when we play them at least one of the 2 times, and I feel like even just looking at the rest of our record, we have like an ugly little slew of games for the next like 4 games, but outside of that, I think it's pretty smooth sailing outside of the Falcons, the second last game of the season. So I just feel like, man, we actually do really have a good chance of winning this division. That's probably some good money to make right there. But if you don't even want to put $100 down, if you want to play it safer and just put down a quick little 10, you can end up winning $12 by the end of the season for that. And again, I like our chances of winning the division, so I think that's probably a good bet to make. But of course, remember, I'm always going to scream at y'all to please make sure y'all gamble responsibly. And also, before we get it back to this video, just again to remind y'all, right now BetUS is offering you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits for up to $2,000 with code YOUTUBE150. Now let's get to these cornerbacks. On November 2nd, Deanna Rossini reported that the Commanders have been calling around the league in search for a cornerback. She even said head coach Dan Quinn knows that cornerback is a weakness on the roster. And I'm not going to lie, man. Hey, a Saturday pick, a day 3 pick for a veteran. Hey, man, maybe you got something shaking right there for a guy like that. Or if it's somebody younger, then maybe I understand going a little bit higher with the pick. But Deanna Rossini said the Commanders are calling around in search of a corner. This is her own tweet. Coach Dan Quinn wants a jolt, and at 6-2, well, now we're 7-2. Washington needs help if they want to get past the Philadelphia Eagles and their superb receiver group in the NFC East. And I completely agree with that. I mean, maybe you can make an argument that, like, you know, maybe we could be all right without corner if you want to only go like a certain distance. But if you're trying to win the division, and if you're specifically trying to match up well against your division opponents, you got to make sure you take away some of their strengths, and that's including receiver. Also, I mean, like the Lions, where right now we're competing with them for #1 seed in the NFC right now, and we do not have the corners ready to defend against that as well. So if you're really trying to go far this year, you need to make adjustments. So Deanna Rossini had an article titled "What I'm Hearing About the NFL Trade Deadline: 13 Players, 18 Teams to Watch Closely." Again, this came out November 2nd. And of course, in this article, she talks about a lot of different teams who may be buyers and sellers, just like Jonathan Jones did with CBS talking about the receiver side. For us, she talked about the corners. And I agree with my boy Mark Bullock when he said a cornerback always made more sense than a wide receiver for me. Cornerback group really struggled earlier in the year, preventing the defense from doing what Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. want to actually do. It's improved lately, but a cornerback with man coverage skills will be a big boost to this defense. And I already did a whole breakdown of that in my Marshawn Lattimore video from a couple of days ago before the Giants game. But that would be a huge boost, man. Allowing Joe Witt Jr. to do what he actually wants to do with the defense schematically, an aggressive man coverage defense where we blitz a lot with a lot of different players. Because when was the last time Quan Martin and Jeremy Chinham just straight up blitz? At least that we've noticed, and like it's been obvious. Joe Witt Jr. wants to blitz a lot of our players, even secondary guys, but right now we have to have those guys on the back end, otherwise we'll allow big big plays even to the Giants, from Daniel Jones to a rookie raw athletic tight end like Theo Johnson. We can't even cover that right now in the back end when it's obvious that they're passing the ball. So how could we ever want to deploy the defense that Joe Wood Jr. wants to call? That's why, even though Joe Wood Jr. deserves some of the blame, I feel like it's far more a blame on the talent as to why we struggle so much against the Giants this past weekend. And then also Mark Bullock went on to say that now shopping for a cornerback and landing one in a trade are two different things though. Doubt Adam Peters wants to give up his first or a second round pick, but he does have the cap space to work with to lower the trade cost. But finding the right profile is never easy at the deadline. I completely agree. But Ben Standig of The Athletic brings up a good point as well. He gave an update on the Commanders trade deadline activity. He said, quote, numerous league sources told The Athletic that they have heard minimally about Washington this dead cycle, or that the team was attached to any specific names. There's a willingness by the front office to listen, especially for a cornerback, according to another team's front office executive, but there's little sense that activity is brewing. So you're hearing from Deanna Rossini and Jonathan Jones that we may actually be pretty active, but you're hearing from Ben Standig of The Athletic that maybe we aren't as active as people think. We're listening, but maybe we're not being the ones that's actually starting the calls and calling out. But however, Standig did make sure to take the long view, noting that this is year one of a multi-year plan focused on sustained contention rather than chasing immediate gratification. I understand that. And the Commanders are playing with house money right now. Shouts out to Bleacher Report for this. After a surprising start, they haven't won more than 10 games in a season since 1991. Washington needs to form a foundation for sustained excellence, and dealing any picks of significance for another piece may not be the wisest choice in pursuit of that goal. General Manager Adam Peters does have 10 draft picks right now for the 2025 draft, including 4 top 100 choices per Standig. So there is a pick to burn maybe, but the question is whether that's a smart move for the future. I say you go ahead and do it. Like I've already talked about in several videos and live streams, I know there's always this sense of, well, we have Jaden Daniels as a franchise quarterback, and this team is already this great, this fast, this quickly, this immediate, just after one off season. We're just assuming that we're going to be great going into the future, and we're just going to always be contenders moving forward, but nothing's ever promised, man. Everybody kept telling me after Cam Newton lost that Super Bowl to Peyton Manning, I was really mad about that, because I was like, Peyton Manning already got one, why are we rooting for him to get another one? And people kept saying back to me, well, Cam Newton will be back, he'll win several of them probably. And that was the season they went 15-1, and then they never even got close to going back. I'm not even sure if they ever won a playoff game again, to my knowledge. And so I don't ever want to look ahead that far and be like, well, we were this great now, we're just going to assume we're only going to be better into the future. So I'm not saying put all of your eggs in one basket and mortgage the future to try to have instant success, but at the same time, man, you got to do what you got to do to try to win a Super Bowl this year, because next year and the year after that is never promised. But like I mentioned earlier, man, if it's a vet guy, like we're going to talk about soon in Tre'davious White, then it would have to be a day 3 pick, like rounds 4 through 7 type of thing. More than likely on the later side, like 6 or 7. But if it's a younger player with a lot of potential to be a good to great starter on a Super Bowl contending team for years to come, then we can start to talk day 2 picks. And remember that we do have a second and 2/3 because we have the Dolphins' 3rd round pick from the Eagles from that Jahan Dotson trade. So remember that. That's a pretty high quality 3rd round pick if the Dolphins keep losing. They just lost to the Bills this week. They lost to the Cardinals the week before that. And I know they're not in sell mode. They're still trying to play well and win the division and go to the playoffs and things like that. But so far, it just hasn't necessarily worked out that well for them. And then shouts out to Mason Kinahan, because I completely agree. He said his Commanders cornerback wish list: Love, Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward, DJ Reed. That's the end of the list. I'm with them. I think Marshawn Lattimore is my favorite out of the 3, but that's the love. Then fine with is Jonathan Jones, and we're going to talk about Jonathan Jones real soon. But he also went on to say, I don't think it's worth trading for anyone else beyond those 4 unless some star surprisingly becomes available. A Newsome White would be very bad. I don't think it's worth trading an early day 3 pick for only a slight upgrade. Would rather give up day 2 picks for a consistent piece over multiple years. And that is a solid point, and I do kind of agree with that. But speaking of Tre'davious White, apparently Washington is one of 3 teams interested in the former All-Pro corner. It was reported that the Ravens, Chiefs, and the Commanders are in on Rams cornerback Tre'davious White. But I'm not gonna lie, shouts out to JP Finley for pointing this out, because he said I would caution taking any rumor too seriously when the word Chiefs is misspelled. In the @NFL rumors Twitter account, when they tweeted this report, Chiefs is spelled incorrectly with the E before the I, just to let you know. So I don't know how much to really dive into this, but Jeremy Fowler himself tweeted back on October 26th that Rams and corner Tre'davious White are discussing options for his future, including a potential trade. Former All-Pro has been inactive, so LA is open to keeping him, knowing things could change over a long season, but league-wide attrition could lead to a deal before the trade deadline. Right now, he's not even playing games for them. And the Rams have even given Tre'davious White permission to seek a trade just a couple of days later on the 28th. So maybe there's something moving there. Maybe there's some growing potential that maybe Tre'davious White will be on the move. It's just a matter of where he'll be. But shouts out to Jordan Rodriguez for this. He pointed out the fact that White has been a healthy scratch for the last 3 games, and this was before they played the Seahawks. I'm not even sure if he played against them. It may be 4 games in a row that he's been a healthy scratch. And he said, as he wrote about a few weeks ago, there was some regret from the Rams that he had to play as many snaps as he did early on because of injuries to other players and a delay in adding quality depth. When they signed him, they said he wouldn't be. They didn't expect for him to play much. He only played early in the season because other guys were not available yet. Now that other guys are available, Tre'davious White is now a healthy scratch for the Rams. And even a Rams reporter wrote an article about which teams would make the most sense to trade Tre'davious White to. He said 5 potential fits for Rams cornerback Tre'davious White ahead of the trade deadline. He wrote this article back on Halloween, October 31st. And then number 1 of the Washington Commanders, he said the Commanders have really struggled against the pass this season, and while White may not be a big upgrade, he would bring a veteran presence and some leadership to the secondary. He'd also be an upgrade over Emmanuel Forbes, who struggled to carve out a role in Washington after being a first-round pick just last year in 2023. But then you have Evan Winter of A to Z Sports. He wrote an entire article saying the Commanders need to avoid 2-time Pro Bowl corner that was given permission to seek a trade. Just straight up avoid him. He said in this article, sure, White's pass play tends to brew up some interest when first hearing his name, but said interest fades once he's placed under the microscope. For starters, White isn't the top corner he once was thanks to multiple long-term injuries he suffered over the past few seasons. He tore his ACL in late 2021, tore his Achilles in 2023, and both injuries are obviously serious in nature themselves, but they can really affect cornerbacks due to the mechanics of the position and what players are required to do, especially if we're talking like long-term wise. He's a shell of himself. He's not the same guy that he was when he was winning all pros and Pro Bowls. Also, I want to point out the fact that I don't believe he brings up this point in this article, but Tre'davious White is also just not a good fit. Even when Tre'davious White was at his best, when he was at the height of his career, he was playing at an all-pro level, he's an elite zone cover corner. He was never like a true man cover corner, and Joe Witt Jr. prefers the Trevon Diggs, the Deron Blands of the world, and like maybe like a Marcus Peters or even a Marshawn Lattimore for the Saints over just a pure zone cover, great, really smart guy that's aware of his surroundings. He wants a guy that could just take a wide receiver out of the game. Tre'davious White doesn't necessarily do that. Tre'davious White doesn't cover receivers. He covers spots, and he used to do that in elite level, but even then, he doesn't necessarily do that very well right now. And again, even when he was doing that at an elite level, Joe Witt Jr. wasn't looking for that. Dan Quinn was not looking for that. But Evan Winter of A to Z Sports continues on saying in this article, he can still play, but he's not a long-term solution by any means, and the Commanders will be in the exact same position they are now come next offseason. I agree. White played all but 6 defensive snaps through the Rams' first 4 games of the season, but he's been a healthy scratch the last 3 games. Darius Williams' return from the injured reserve has definitely played a part, but per the Athletics' Jordan Rodriguez, the Rams never intended to play White as much as they did during the beginning of the season anyway. They wanted to bring him along slowly so he'd be ready for a full-on role, maybe come November. That's really interesting. He also goes on to say White's injury history is enough reason to stay away, but there's also the question of fit. He doesn't really have the size and length that the Commanders head coach Dan Quinn and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. desire. On top of that, his man coverage skills aren't what they used to be. Overall, he's inconsistent and is better suited for a defensive scheme that is more zone coverage than anything. My exact points. So he did end up bringing that up in the article. Also, he says, sure, White would be cheap. He'd cost a low-end day 3 pick at best, maybe like a 6th or a 7th rounder, and the Commanders would take on the remaining $750K of his base salary. He also has a per game roster bonus that pays him $58,823 for every game in which he's active. That comes out to an additional $529,000 if he were hypothetically active for all of the remaining games for the Commanders, remaining 9. He wrote this before the Giants game, so it'd actually be less than that. But either way, so in total, the Washington Commanders will end up paying him a little less than $1.3 million on the season if all goes well. But even then, I'd rather use that draft capital on a player that I can coach up and develop that also fits what I'm trying to do on defense for the future. It may not necessarily, that draft pick wouldn't help you in 2024, but it will help you immensely better 2025 and beyond. The same goes for the money. That could be used to either sign the aforementioned draft pick, or the Commanders could find their own cheap veteran that provides depth or even a starting caliber role. Those guys will definitely be out there when free agency starts next March. So basically, this guy's talking from the perspective of a team that's trying to build for the future and be Super Bowl contenders next year and beyond. He's not concerned about this season at all. Even though we are 7-2, he's not worried about the instant gratification of trading for Tre'davious White this season whatsoever. He also finished the article by saying acquiring White wouldn't come with much risk, but the reward isn't much either. That's a good point. Washington is better off staying the course with who they have now. If they do want to add to the secondary, primarily the cornerback position, then looking elsewhere is what they need to do, and I do definitely agree. But how about another corner? How about Jonathan Jones, who as of right now, before this past weekend just happened, before they played, I believe, the Titans, he had 3 pass breakups, 23 solo tackles, a forced fumble, only 1 touchdown allowed, and a 69 Pro Football Focus grade for the Patriots so far this season. And then he had a bad game against the Tennessee Titans, but against the Jaguars, he had a good game. He had a good game against the Jets, good game against the Dolphins. His worst game was against the Texans. That was abysmal. But even his best game of the season was against the Bengals week 1 of the season. And again, right now, he has a 67 overall grade, which is not bad. That's a higher grade than any other corner on our team right now, to be completely honest. Like right now, his current overall grade places him as the 46th best corner in the entire NFL. Mind you, when you look at the Washington Commanders, Mike Sainristil is our highest graded corner at a 62. Noah Benogany is a 57. Benjamin St-Juste is a 48.9. Michael Davis is a 39.7. Unplayable. Emmanuel Forbes is a 34.9. And we haven't been playing him much either at all. So right now, Jonathan Jones will be the best corner on our team by at least pretty much 7 Pro Football Focus overall grade points. So it would be definitely an upgrade, to say the very least, but how much of an upgrade would it actually be? But y'all already know, man, my favorite candidate is Marshawn Lattimore, dog. Already did an entire video breaking down why he makes the most sense for all parties involved, from the Saints, from Marshawn Lattimore, and the Commanders' point of views, all of that. So I don't want to dive into everything in this video again, because again, I just broke it all down 2 days ago. But shouts out to Spot Track for breaking down exactly what's going on with his contract. Because if the Saints were to trade Marshawn Lattimore to another team, they would take on potentially $14 million worth of dead cap in 2024 and $31.6 million in 2025. So that actually makes it sound like it's less likely for them to trade him. But at the same time, they don't have any cap space, and they got to save whatever cap space they can get, because currently they are right now $76 million in the hole for the 2025 season. And I mean, I guess trading them away would technically make that a little worse 2025 wise specifically, but they do not have cap space and they need to clear as much as they possibly can. But as far as the new team and what we would gain, and this is a good thing money wise, but this is a bad thing trade wise, because I'm pretty sure the Saints are aware of this and they're going to probably ask for more in a trade because of this. Because if you were to trade for Marshawn Lattimore right now, he would only hit you for $605,000 against the cap this season, 2024. Also in 2025, he would only be an $18 million cap hit, non-guaranteed, and in 2026 he would be an $18.5 million cap hit, non-guaranteed as well. That is such an advantageous contract for whoever trades for him that I'm pretty sure the Saints are going to ask for all sorts of draft capital in return, because they're doing you so much of a favor. They're going to take on $31.6 million worth of dead cap in 2025 when they're already in the hole for $76 million just to trade him away. Oh yeah, they're going to rob somebody for draft picks if they're going to end up trading them. So I really hope that we still end up getting them, but based on those numbers right there, we would probably have to give up a lot in a trade just because his contract is so advantageous. We would still have so much cap space left over to go and get even more guys in the 2025 offseason, even after we traded for Marshawn Lattimore, because of how his contract is set up. I love it. But Shouts out to Nikki Javala. She pointed out, just before we go, she pointed out some names that we could trade for. For the Washington Post, she pointed out exactly why. So Greg Newsome of the Browns, J.C. Horn of the Panthers. Y'all already know how I feel about him. Tre'davious Smith for the Browns, but it looks like he's headed to the Lions. And Mikey Williams of the Jets, the wide receiver there, the big, tall wide receiver. But he's also sort of like a Noah Brown variant, where he's a little bit injury prone, but a tall receiver. So that's interesting right there. And then also you got my boy at Smith for GM Bobby Gold over there. He said by the trade deadline, I'm expecting one of these men to be in Washington. Jonathan Jones, the corner for the Patriots, who we just most recently talked about. T. Higgins, wide receiver, or Browns cornerback Ward or Newsome. Again, y'all already know where I stand. Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward, and then it's probably Jonathan Jones right under that. Or maybe you could throw DJ Reed in there as far as corners go. Wide receiver, the only one that makes sense at this point for me is T. Higgins. And then edge rusher wise, there's all sorts of names out there. I would really hope we go and look at Harold Landry from the Titans, as quiet as that's kept, because we were trying to call about Tre'davious Smith, but it seems like he's going to the Lions. And hey, man, Raiders, stop being selfish and let us go ahead and get Max Crosby off your hands. Y'all not using them correctly anyway, man. Yes, sir, that's the end of this video, man. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please stiff on that like button, stiff on the subscription button, stiff on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content, man. I really appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all stay tuned. I'm trying to get like 2-3 videos a day for y'all. I'm gonna keep y'all updated on every little thing when it comes to this trade deadline that's happening. It comes up Tuesday, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So any rumors that come around, any reports, if we do end up making a trade, of course I'm gonna have the full breakdown of who that player is, how he fits on this team, was it a good trade, contract details, all of that type of stuff. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Do you want the Commanders to target any receivers or corners? If so, which ones do you want? Do you agree or disagree with any of my points? Are you a no to Tre'davious White like I am? Or are you like a slight yes to maybe a Jonathan Jones for a late round pick? Or how do you feel about Marshawn Lattimore or Denzel Ward? Are you out on Greg Newsome? Let me know how you feel about that entire thing. Edge rusher, how do you feel about that situation? Do we still need to trade for an edge rusher, even as well as Dante Fowler has been playing? Dorrance Armstrong, I think, was our 5th highest graded player according to Pro Football Focus from that win against the Giants. Let me know how you feel about all of that, man. Let me know. Please definitely do not leave this video without stiff arming that like button, of course. And this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. And please make sure, if you don't do nothing else, please make sure y'all gamble responsibly, man. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.